Hello. Um, Hang on a second. Just getting. I want to have the chat window open. On the stream page itself, there's a chat window on the side that allows you to um, um, have a conversation with me, I guess. And if you have anything to say, just type in there, and I'll be glancing over at it periodically. I'll type in there right now. It says hello. Okay, so sorry, my throat's a little sore today. I'll try not to cough too much into the microphone. And actually, that's a good reminder. I believe last time the gain was a bit high on the mic, so I'm just going to turn it down a little bit. If it's too quiet, let me know, and I will turn it back up. So let's get started. I'll talk to you a little bit about what I am doing today. I'm hacking on. So if you remember last week, we were working on this bug, which was the the windows and tabs not opening properly if we're using an etns window and we're using a target equals underscore blank anchor, or it's a window dot open. And I found a solution to it that I'm not going to go into too much detail right now. I wrote up some pretty copious notes. That reminds me, I should probably provide a link to the notes in the video description. So let me do that. I'll paste them in your video description. I can't paste a link to it in the comments, so I'll have to do it here in the video description. So bug note, and the bug itself I'll also put a link to in case you want to get more context of what the bug is that I'm working on. So like I said, it's the same bug as last week, except that I'm quite a bit further along. I found a solution, and the bug is, I can fix the bug. I can make it so that things work properly. And if you're interested in the solution, it's in the bug note. There's a string here. You should be looking for it. So now I know why it's not working as a great string to start with. And then you can sort of read through this if you're curious to know exactly what I'm doing and what my solution is. All of this kind of details it. But where I am right now is test failures. So I had the solution. Hello, Madhav. I had the solution. It worked. Everything was great. The problem was that when I pushed the patch to try, I got a whole bunch of orange back. And that means, when I say orange, I mean that test failures were occurring on our test machines. And so I have to investigate those. I can't land a patch if it breaks a bunch of tests. So I have to figure out what's wrong with my tests. And so that's what I'm going to be doing here today. Finding out why my test is broken. Why I've broken tests. And what we can do to fix them. And then hopefully land the patch sooner rather than later. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So let me tell you a little bit about the tests that are failing. You're kind of catching me right in the middle of working on this. I looked at this morning at some of these test failures. I'd pushed the patch to try the try server to run the test last night. I got the results this morning. These are the failures I saw. There was an unexpected timeout for the actual regression test that I add for the patch that I'm adding, the patch that I wrote. It turns out that that's actually expected. It's not a great situation, but that test opens up remote browsers on Linux, and if you've tried to open up a new remote browser on Linux before, whenever you have a non-etns window, or even an etns window, I believe, what you see is an alert dialog saying that, well, off-main thread compositing isn't enabled, so you can't have remote windows. And that modal dialog is blocking the test from proceeding, and that causes the test to fail. So some of that alert dialog is kind of bunk, because I can definitely have etns running, and be using Linux and things run fine. What happens is whenever we have E10S enabled by default on nightly, we kind of, I believe we force E10S to be, we force off main thread compositing to be enabled as well. So that that makes things work. We need off main thread compositing for E10S to work. That's kind of how the graphics pipeline works between different processes. The alert dialog is therefore somewhat erroneous. We don't really need it whenever we have E10S enabled by default on nightly. So I might file a bug to remove or modify that alert dialog. Let me actually take a note to do that at the bottom of this. File a bug to alter the alert dialog that tells Linux users that they can't open E10S windows because of OMTC being disabled. OMTC is off main thread compositing. Make it so that there is no alert dialog if we have browser remote tabs auto start enabled. That's the pref that allows us to start E10S up on when your browser starts. I actually think it's .1 because I believe that's the pref that we fiddle to enable E10S by default. Okay, so I have a note to do that. What else? So let me tell you about this test that's failing. We have, let's see. Sorry, I'm getting distracted with things buzzing in my pocket. People are talking about this stream. That's great. There is a failure here. Two legitimate failures. Two actual legitimate failures that I want to investigate. This one that was up here about the browser prompt, or sorry, the prompt blocking the test. That to me is not a legitimate failure. That's just us being dumb about showing a prompt. So I'm going to just disable that test on Linux for now. We'll probably fix the bug to make the prompt not show up, and then we'll re-enable the test. So I've got a to-do at the bottom to do that work. But that's not the interesting part. There's actual legitimate breakage in these two tests, at least. This third test also broke, but whenever I ran it in isolation, I wasn't able to reproduce it, so I suspect that it only broke because the last two probably broke and put it in a weird state. Maybe put the browser in a weird state, because all the tests run consecutively in the same session, which is kind of bad. It's not great, but if something fiddles a pref and doesn't put it back, or breaks something and the state is persisted, that broken state has persisted, then that can affect later tests down the line. That's kind of a trade-off we make, I imagine, so that it's faster to run these tests instead of having to open a new browser for every test, start up a brand new clean session every time. But then you get these cascading failures sometimes where one test can cause a whole series of tests to fail. So I'm going to operate on the assumption right now that this last test is only failing because these two tests are failing. And it's possible that this second test is only failing because this first test is failing. No, it's not possible. I'm wrong about that. The reason I'm wrong about that is because I ran both of these in isolation on my Linux VM, and they both broke. So they weren't affecting one another. They both broke. So I'm going to look at this one first. Bug 491431, that test. What this test does, I've already kind of broken out down here. I read through the test file, and here's what the test does. It tests opening up a new tab, closing it very quickly, and then when the tab has been closed, after that first tab has been closed, we open another tab at the same URL and then drag that tab to a new window, and then make sure that there's an event detail on the tab close event that says that we tore that event out and tore that tab out and put it in a new window. So that's exercising the change in bug 491431, which added the ability to distinguish. Here, I'll show you this bug. Sorry. Big spinner. It adds a way of distinguishing tab detach versus tab close in the actual tab close event when it's fired. So we add something to the event detail that says, well, we close this tab because we're actually detaching it and putting it into a new window. as opposed to the user closed it or some script closed it or something along those lines. Okay, so right, that test is failing. Why is that test failing? So I looked into it a little bit before I got here, and what's happening is that this we're seeing this failure, NS error not implemented in browser.xml, the browser binding, and it's failing because that line is actually trying to call swap frame loaders. Swap frame loaders is used to, whenever you open up a new window, so whenever you drag a tab out from one window into another window, what's actually happening is we're closing a tab in the first window, we're opening a brand new window, and then we're splatting the content from that first tab that we closed into the second one. Actually, I don't know if it happens in that order. It's possible that we like open the second window first, move the content over, and then close the original tab. And the way that we do that, moving the content over, is using this function called swap frame loaders. That's basically like a brain transplant between two browsers saying, I want you to hold what the other one is holding. And that was added by BZ way back in the day. I've actually been reading up about this has to do with doc shells again. If you were listening to my last stream, I was talking about doc shell a lot and like content shells and all this business. I've been researching doc shells. If you're interested in doc shells, I am checking them out. I'm trying to learn about them, and my blog has an article. I'm working on this like series on how to understand, or on my understanding of doc shell. It's called Doc Shell in a Nutshell, and I believe I have something in here about swap frame loaders. Yeah, here it is. So this stuff was added, the swap frame loader stuff was added in August of 2008. So if you're interested in kind of the idea of how it works, you might want to read this blog post. Right, so why isn't it working with my patch? That's a great question. What I've done actually, I did a build just now with my patch backed out. So these are all the patches that I've applied to fix bug 1047603, which is the bug I'm working on, the root bug I'm working on. I've actually I've changed where my working directory is pointed to just before those patches, to just make sure that, like, to get a sense of what happens whenever we run this test with E10S before my patch. So now we can get a sense of what has changed. That's kind of the idea here. I've clearly changed something with my patch. I've changed some code path. What's changed, and why has that broken things? Those are sort of the questions I'm trying to answer right now. What have I changed that has caused this to break, and what are my ways around that? Pretty straightforward. So let's check it out. It takes a minute here to kick up the tests. Meanwhile, I will see if anyone's saying anything in the chat room. No one is saying anything. Okay. And Madhav took a picture of me and posted it to Twitter. That's great. Okay, so the test passes, and that error I was seeing before of there being, like, swap frame loaders not being defined is not there. So, for some reason, my change makes it so that swap frame loaders is throwing in this new tab. So let me think about that for a second. I'm just going to drink my Coke and think for a second about why my change might have affected that. Okay. So what I'm thinking about right now is, well, let's take a look at all the changes I made, actually. Let's look at what I've done. And maybe we can identify where in my change I've caused this problem to occur. So there are actually, let's take a look at where the swap frame loaders gets called as well. What is it? Browser.xml. That's the file that is causing the problem. I'm also just making an assumption that this is the cause of the problem. I have a high degree of certainty that this is the problem that swap frame loaders is throwing, and that's causing the test to fail. Whenever you see an exception being thrown in your test that's new and unfamiliar, that's a pretty good smell. So hopefully I'm not going down the wrong path here, but when we so there's a method on a browser, every browser, including remote browsers, called swap doc shells. So it takes some other browser, and then it calls swap frame loaders on it, and this is what fails. This throws an exception. So I am going to, what am I going to do about this? This test fails on, let's see, what platforms? It affects OS X and Windows 7. So I could do a debug build and attach my debugger to find out why swap frame loaders is throwing NS error not implemented. Why would swap frame loaders throw NS error not implemented? That's a good question. I'd have to find out what's throwing it. So what I'm going to do is the following. It's for me on my machine, I can build on OS X pretty quickly. It takes me, I don't know, less than 20 minutes to do a debug build. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick off a debug build with my patches. Do I have them in here? Yes, I'm actually going to do a debug build here. So that will build. I'm going to shut down this VM right now just to reduce the load on my machine while I build. And while that's building, let's explore my patch a little bit and come up with some hypotheses about why swap frame loaders might not be working. Let's also pull up the source code for swap frame loaders. Because maybe there's something obvious that is causing us to throw. So there are a couple of implementations of swap frame loaders. Let's take a look at all of them. Frame loader owner. NS element frame loader owner might be one. Object loading content. That's something that to me is what that says to me is a plugin. Object loading content is usually like Flash. I don't think that's what I'm dealing with here. I'm just going to ignore that. And this is just making reference to swap frame loaders. So that's not what I'm interested in. But these, I'm seeing some NS error not implemented in here. Here's another implementation of swap frame loaders. This one has a slightly different function signature. This can also throw NS error not implemented. And then this one will just straight up throw NS error not implemented. And so will this one. Great. Okay, so now we have a couple of places. Like we didn't have to dig too deep. We found a couple of places where this error that I'm seeing can be thrown. And now the question is which one is throwing it? So I've got this debug build going. I wonder how long that's going to take. Hope not too long. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. So we're talking about hypotheses. Maybe I'll do some hypotheses. What's the difference between NS Zool element and NS element frame loader owner? Actually, I'm where is that? Let's see. We QI the browser for this interface, NSI frame loader owner, and call swap frame loaders on it. NS element frame loader owner. What even is this thing? What even are you? Is there any mention of what this thing does? A helper class for frame elements. Great. Who built you and why? I don't really want to follow the provenance of this file all the way back to its inception, not if I don't have to. Okay, so this is just some helper. What did it say? Helper method for frame elements? Or helper class? Okay. NSZool element sounds more like what I'll be dealing with. NSZool element, I would imagine, implements NSI frame loader owner. Let's check. NSI frame loader owner. Oh. I'm sorry. Browser QI for NSI frame loader owner. So whatever the browser is, I thought. NSI frame loader owner. Tear off. Interface map entry. Swap frame loaders. Purely by guessing, but I feel like it's an educated guess. I'm pretty sure we're entering one of these. I have a feeling that one of these is throwing. Now, why would it be throwing? So let's break down what's happening in really small chunks. Let me check how my build's doing. Check on my build, still building. That is going to take a little while. So I was going to do this test to see. Right, so I've not just broken this test. I've realized that I've actually broken tab dragging with this, tab tearing with this patch. So this is like legitimate breakage. This isn't just me trying to like fake my way past a test. I have definitely regressed tab tearing. Not that tab tearing works perfectly in E10S right now, but this just breaks it completely. So that's a thing to deal with. So what actually occurs whenever we tear a tab off? Let's think about it very carefully. Swap doc shells. Who calls swap doc shells? I don't even know from whose perspective swap doc shells is being called. Is it from the new browser that's being opened or the browser that's being closed? So that's a question. Swap doc shells. Who calls that? This method. These are tests. Don't care. Begin and end. That's not really what I want. Here. Here, that's what I want. Swap browser doc shells, right. Okay, swap. So who calls that? Swap new tab with browser. Who calls that? Swap new tab with browser. Aha. Swap with new tab. Who calls this? Wait, this is the customization tab preloader. That's, hold on, no, that's not right. New tab with browser. I believe there are other callers to this, right? Oh, I spelled it wrong. Browser. Huh, okay, so no one else calls that. That's definitely, this is not. Is this the only person that calls swap browser doc shells? That doesn't sound right. Swap browser doc shells. Two places call it. within swap new tab with browser, and big spinny, swap browsers and close other. That's more like it. That's what I'm interested in. And who calls that? A couple of places in here, and then we just have some tests. So, okay. What is this? Delayed startup. This is if a new window opens and it's been passed an argument. It's been passed an argument that is some kind of Zool element, and then I don't know who actually would do that. Who passes an argument of another browser is what I imagine. It's a wait, URI to load, URI to load. Swap the given tab with the default about blank tab, and then close the original tab in the other window. So somehow you swap, you pass in a browser as an argument to this new window that you create, and then you swap them. Okay, neat. This is more interesting. This is the okay. This is it. Let's reopen these. Here, let's pull up some source code. I actually have a ton of tabs in here that I don't need, so I'm going to close a bunch of tabs. Oh, come on, there we go. I don't actually think I need this tab either. What I want to see is this test that is failing, so that we can look at the source code of it, and then we can kind of break down more about what's going wrong. I think we have to drill in deeper. So where is this test? Oh, I am pegging my CPU right now. All right. This is the test. And the way we actually do the drag out is we directly call replace tab with window. That's the entry point for the actual, like the simulating of tearing out, is we call replace tab with window. And what does that do? Replace tab with window. Moves a tab to a new browser window unless it's already the only tab, in which case this will do nothing. That makes sense. Tearing a tab out when it's the only tab doesn't make any sense. So we return null if that is happening. We don't do anything. Otherwise, we bubble an event. We dispatch an event. We say a tab is about to become a new window. Then we tell a new window to take the dropped tab. So this, I think we actually are. We're passing in that thing that I said was kind of weird, where we're passing in some kind of Zool element as an argument to the window. That's what's totally happening here. I'm pretty sure we're hitting this. We're hitting this code path. So the perspective of who's calling swap browsers and close other is the new window. It's in the new window that's being opened, as opposed to the old window that had the tab. It's the new window that's opening and has been handed some browser to swap into the initial tab, the selected tab here. So let me write this down. I'm gonna cough for a second. Sorry. Okay. This stuff up here wasn't very useful. I'm just going to get rid of it. I did confirm this. That tab tearing did not work. So this is a problem because when, what is it? What was that function called? gbrowser replace tab with window is called in the test. We open a new browser window, and that browser window is passed tab B as an argument, and then we run the following code in delayed startup. Delayed startup is a function that runs after the new window is painted. So we paint the window as soon as we can, and then we take action to do things like loading documents or whatnot. So we run this stuff. Okay. Then in swap browsers and close other, let's take a look at the source code for that again. So with some protections against transferring private tabs to windows that are not private. So a other tab is the tab that we're trying to bring in and be our tab. Our tab is the one that we are going to replace. We're going to swap the contents of these two, and then we are going to close a other tab. That's the story. So we get the remote browser. That's the browser that that's the G browser for the window where this tab came from. Start the teardown of the other browser. And then we say swap browser doc shells. And then we get close, very close to where our problem is. When we start swapping the doc shells, then we actually call on our browser swap doc shells. And that is implemented in the browser XML binding here. And the frame loader owner is not set up for the browser. Okay. I imagine that this is because, so one of the things that I've changed, one of my solutions, we had this assumption before where if we were opening an e2nes window, like a brand new browser window, the browser window opens with a default, like with an initial tab in it. And before we were forcing that tab to be remote. We did that here. This is the before on the left. We said if we are a G multiprocess browser, that means an e2nes window, then update the remoteness of the selected browser, which in this case is the initial browser, as true. This is running in the onload method, which executes as soon as the window has loaded its DOM, I believe. And so we update the browser remoteness on that initial browser. So it becomes a remote browser initially. The disadvantage to that was whenever we removed the doc shell, so the initial browser was not remote to begin with, and so it had its like own doc shell, and it was the primary content browser ready to roll. As soon as we removed that doc shell, when we executed this line, update browser remoteness, we got rid of that doc shell. We removed it from the tree, and then the content tree owner said, "Oh, I don't have a primary content frame anymore." Remember we were talking about this last week about what primary content frames were. Is that what it was? Primary content something. I was talking about it endlessly. What was it? Primary content tree owner. Right. As soon as we remove that browser's doc shell, the primary content tree owner gets it doesn't exist anymore because there is no primary content. We've removed that doc shell. There is no browser that has primary content that has a doc shell in that window. And then there's a whole bunch of like Gecko infrastructure that freaks out because it expects there to be uh, a m primary content tree owner in the window that's been opened up, so that it can like that's basically its way of finding the selected tab, is saying, well, give me the primary content tree owner, and then I can do a thing like query interface or get interface to the browser that's in there and send it to a particular URI, things along those lines. Because we didn't do that, there was a bug earlier in my solution to all of this that, well, it couldn't find the primary content tree owner, so its failure case was to take the doc shell of the entire Chrome, like of the root window, and load the web content into that, which resulted in this. This is the web content loading in the root doc shell, which completely overwrites all of the browser Chrome, the browser UI, which is definitely not what we want. So the solution, my solution to that, was instead of updating the browser remoteness as soon as the browser loads, we like that was necessary in order for things like window.open and opening new windows from the content process to work properly. Because when the content process asks for a new window, what it wants is an NSI DOM window right away to send it somewhere. So it needs it synchronously. That worked in single process Firefox without a problem. With multiple process, the content process needs to tell the parent process, okay, open me a window, and then I need you to send me something that allows me to provide an NSI DOM window to my caller. And I need you to do that like synchronously. I need you to do that ASAP. So it opens a new window, and because we were updating the browser remoteness immediately, we could get the frame loader for that newly opened window, query interface it for like the NSI tab parent that it belongs to, static cast that into a P browser and send that down to the child. That's all sort of gobbledygook, but what it means is because we were able to synchronously create a remote browser, we were able to tell the child what to load its document into. And that's really only necessary when the child process is opening up the window. So what I did, instead of this doing it automatically for every E10S window that ever opens, is I added a function to this object that we expose. What is it called? I think it's called Zool browser window. This is something that our native code can call relatively easily, and I called it force initial browser remote. And then I have force initial browser remote. I have the code that's being run whenever the content process is asking for a new window. I say, okay, force the initial browser in the window that you've just opened to be remote, and then I want you to pass me the tab parent that belongs to it. And then I can static cast that and send that down to the child process. Send the actor down, which translates into a thing that the child process can then convert into an NSI DOM window and actually load content into, which is great. So the long and the short of it is that I've kind of changed. Oh, someone has said hello. Hello. The long and the short of it is that I've changed the way that windows start up, so that they used to be remote, like they used to be forced to be remote, and now they are not. And I wonder if that's the cause of the problem. My debug build is almost done. I think I'm just doing linking now, or I'm getting close to linking, so that's almost done. But I'll be able to test this hypothesis in a second. So let's go back to here. I was making good progress over, where was I? Swap doc shells. And then I went into the browser.xml. So the initial browser that's having swap doc shells be called on it, okay, so my build's done. That's good. Does not have swap frame loaders working correctly. Let's find out why. Now that I have this debug build, I can find out why. I can actually reproduce this without having to run the test. I can probably reproduce this by just trying to tear out a tab. I've got Xcode here. Let me drag that in. I will use this to debug. I've got a whole bunch of breakpoints in here I do not need anymore. I will remove these. Oh, debug build, so slow. Yes, Doug, I'm hacking on the internet again. My friend Doug, who is also a streamer, he streams playing video games. You should check him out. His streaming name is Elad Difficult. He plays video games and streams it, and sometimes he plays on a dance pad. He's very good. He says hello. He's kind of been the one to inspire me to do this stuff. So thank you for that, Doug, who is in the chat room apparently. So this debug build, are you ready to roll? Where even are you? Is it running? Yes, apparently. Where's the window? There we go. That took forever. Jeez. Holy smokes, look at this. Chugga, 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 chugga. Come on. That is some pretty horrific performance in a debug build. But what you gonna do? It's a debug build. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to... I believe this failure is happening in the parent. So I will attach my debugger to the parent. Whoop. So this is, I wish, there probably is a keyboard shortcut to bring in this dialog to connect to a particular process ID, but I don't know what it is. Okay, so I am connected to the process, it's running. I think all is well. We're running. Okay. I haven't set any breakpoints yet. I probably should. Where am I going to set my breakpoints? I had identified a couple of places where we could be throwing NSA not implemented with swap frame loaders. So let's set some breakpoints there. I will set a breakpoint here, and as Zool element swap frame loaders in both places. Holy smokes, why is this so sluggish? Be NS Zool element swap frame loaders. Okay, so 2 breakpoints set there, and then where were the other places that possibly were firing those? These are the ones I'm less convinced are firing those errors. I think it's this NS Zool element, sorry, NS element frame loader owner. Yeah, so I will pause here again. I will break there. Okay, so my breakpoints are set. I'm ready to roll. Let's see if I can tear out a tab. If I just attempt to tear out this Twitter tab, that should hit the failure case. Oh, continue. Man, maybe something landed in Nightly lately that's It's making everything extra sluggish. Perhaps some, no, I have no idea what's causing all this sluggishness, but this is horrible. I am clicking this continue button and nothing is happening. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Ugh, my... Alright. That's... Wow. Memory. This is just horked. I think I just need to kill this. Maybe this debug build was for nothing. Well, instead of opening Twitter, which was causing problems, clearly, and I don't think that's Twitter's fault. I think the browser was doing something kind of odd. Maybe I'll just open up 2 about blank pages. Doug says I should promote this in the ASMR subreddit. That somehow my chatter is soothing. Well, maybe. Maybe I will do that. Okay, so did this... Yeah, this browser shut down. Let's try that again. Let's see if I can prevent it from locking up. Maybe I can prevent it from even going to Twitter. And we'll just go to about blank. How are we doing on time here? I've been streaming for about 46 minutes. Oh. Apparently my streaming rate's pretty rough right now, too. If you've been seeing a lot of buffering, sorry about that. I don't know what the dealio is. I'm connected to what I think should be a pretty good network. My work network is supposed to be pretty awesome. But something on my machine might be running kind of slowly. Which would explain why... Why the debug build is even slower than I expected it to be. Okay. Don't go anywhere, new tab. I don't want you to load anything. And open another new tab. I'll have you be about blank as well. Great. Okay. I'm in a good situation. I'm going to attach my browser, my debugger on the parent process. Doug's asking me if I know my bit rate. I don't. I'm using OBS, the same software that you showed me to stream. I just used like a lot of the default settings. So that's what I'm streaming with. Maybe I can get some tips from you later on how to do this better. But maybe there are better ways of doing this. But currently YouTube is saying that my stream status is bad at my 1080p stream because it's not receiving enough packets from me fast enough. Damn it! There's Twitter again. Please. Grr. Grr. No, that's bad. I need to kill this session again. That's a pain in the butt. That is a real pain in the butt. So what am I going to do? Let me think for a second. Well, I'm going to try running a different profile. And I'll enable etns in there. Actually, no. Here's what I'll do. I'm going to kill this. I'm going to run my etns profile without debug, and I'm going to make sure that it's not trying to load Twitter. And then when that's done, I'll run my debug build with that profile. And then it won't hopefully attempt to connect to Twitter. which was causing that slow script warning. Maybe I'll take this opportunity to disable some things as well. Or maybe I'll take this opportunity to analyze what appears to be some pretty horrific performance problems. Like, look at this. Look at this. I clicked this tab. What's going on here? Ugh. Maybe. Sorry, like, I was hoping to do more actual fixing here. I'm trying to now debug this, like, why my machine is so slow right now. OBS is apparently like, oh, OBS appears to be eating a ton of my CPU right now. Appears to be the problem. I don't know why that is. I guess maybe encoding this video is an expensive proposition. But OBS is apparently eating a ton of my CPU, which might explain why things are slower than you'd expect. Maybe there's something in here I could change, but I apologize. This is not going nearly as smoothly as I wanted it to. I'm sorry. Yeah, what's... See, like... Come on, respond, respond. Respond! See, that's taking way too long. It's normally much snappier than this. OBS. I might have to find different streaming software if this continues to hurt me like this. Well, I'll try and make things as light as possible. I'm going to disable some add-ons. I have a... Oh, things are starting to get snappier now. I wonder if OBS has finally started to catch up. I'm going to disable that. I'm going to disable the profiler. I don't imagine DOM Inspector is very heavy. Now that things are better, that's all good. This profile did not attempt to go to Twitter. So, great. I'm going to close it now. And now I'm going to run it again with the debug build. Okay. Hey, this is reasonably responsive for a debug build. Great. Okay, now I'm going to send... No! Don't you go anywhere, Nightly. Okay, there we go. About blank. So, 2 remote pages. This is good. I'm in a good state. I'm in a better state than I was. Sorry about the little hiccup there. That was probably really boring. I'm going to attach my debugger now, like I did before. It still remembers all the breakpoints I set. Okay, now I'm going to tear this tab out. Huh. I did not hit any of my breakpoints. Okay, good. Then I will try something different. I'm going to call the same function that the test calls, which is replace tab with window. And so I bring up the browser console to send a command to. I'll bring that over here so you can see it. Yep. Replace tab with window, and I'll say gbrowser.selected tab. Huh. I did not hit... Oh, so I thought it would remember the breakpoints. It does not remember the breakpoints. Son of a beach. And am I... Was the error about... Yeah, the NS error failure... Oh, NS error not implemented. That's probably the error. Yeah, in browser. So I am hitting it. So now I'm going to hit... let me just set those breakpoints again. This is bullshit. I'm sorry. At least it remembers. Remembers the commands. I just wish you'd remember my breakpoints. I'ma swear at you. Alright, here we go. Do it. Huh. No breakpoints, but also no error. Maybe I had the wrong window selected. Let me... Come on, come on, come on, come on. Maybe if I choose the different tab. Let's try that. Give me that error. Here we go. Pay dirt. Alright, finally. Finally. Okay, so we're stepping into some other method. Swap with other loader. Come on, keep up. Aha! Aha! This is the problem. This is the problem. So, I know what the problem is. Yes, the browser in the new window is not remote. I made that happen. I did that on purpose. When we try and swap the frame loaders, we are attempting to swap the frame loaders from a browser that is remote to a browser that is not remote. That is not going to work. So, what are we going to do about that? I think that's a matter of... So there are a couple of solutions to this. The code that opens that new window, we might want to instruct it to force that initial browser to be remote before it attempts to do a dock shell swap. We exposed that function so that on Zool browser window so that we could do that. Let me think about it. That's probably the right course of action. Yes, we want to force, if we're opening up a new E10S window and we desperately need that initial browser to be remote right away, I think we should explicitly call it. Like explicitly say, have your initial browser be remote. Yep. Okay. So I don't need this anymore. I know what's going wrong. Let's write it down. So the problem is that the browser, the new window that opens, attempts to swap the frame loader of its initial browser with the frame loader of a remote browser, but the initial browser in the new window is not remote. We cannot currently swap frame loaders between remote and non-remote browsers. We therefore throw NS error not implemented, and Bob's your uncle. So now it's a matter of, so the solution is to make the newly opened browser window have a remote browser that we can swap with right away. The question is, where's the best place to do that? And I can think of a couple places. Let me think here. Let me roll out some candidates at you. See what you think. The first candidate I can think of is, well, it's like along that whole line of, like, we started to drill into this pathway of swapping browsers. What we want to do is make sure that we find the common choke point where everything that ends up trying to open up a new tab, opening up a new browser window, falls through a particular function, and that function is the one that should say, okay, force your initial browser to be remote. So where would that be? Maybe swap browser dock shells. Because I think everyone passes through here. Like, if the other browser is remote and we are not remote, then how did we get there? Currently, I don't think it's possible to drag windows from remote to non-remote browse. Like if you have two windows, one that has remote tabs and one that does not, I do not believe it is currently supported that you can drag one from one to the other. And that's probably not a thing we want to support. I don't think we want people to have like a mixture of remote and non-remote browsers. That's going to be confusing. That's going to be inconsistent. And because, I mean, we've got this nice way of I say nice, it's not really nice, but we have this way of showing you that your tabs are remote by underlining them, and we're not going to have that in release. The tabs should be indistinguishable from the ones that you normally use in Firefox. So if we suddenly have these like two ways of running browsers inside Windows that is not immediately transparent to the user, that's bad. It's bad for the user because, well, if they run into problems, it's hard for them to see an obvious reason why, and it's hard for us developers and the QA people and support people because it's hard for us to determine what state you're in if now all of a sudden we have two different modes you could be in, then we have to check. So I don't think we want to be able to support dragging, like if we explicitly wanted to support two different window modes, then yes, I guess we would want to be able to drag tabs in between the two, but because we don't, I don't think that's something we want to be able to do. So I think we can go ahead and make the assumption that if we are dragging a remote tab out to a new window, then that new window better be a window that can support remote browsers. Otherwise, it should fail. And if we're dragging it out to a brand new window, we should make it so that the initial browser is remote. Let's see. That actual browser opening happens where? Don't we do something like open dialog? Oh, we saw this before. This replace tab with window. Tell a new window to take the drop tab. Options. Options is just a whole bunch of these like little comma separated things that are. It'd be nice if this was like a thing that we could pass in like an object that we could pass in some arguments. We can say like, make the first one remote, but it's not. We could have another argument in here. How does that work? Browser.js. URI to load. Delayed startup. Where does this stuff come from? Get URI to load. What is that? Get URI to load. It gets all these window arguments. So I don't think I want to like modify it so that instead of passing this Zool element that we pass some kind of object that we can talk about, but if the Zool element that's coming in, this maybe it's here. So if the Zool element that comes in is a browser that has a like it's a tab that has a remote browser, and we are a G multi-process browser, then we should force our initial browser to be remote. I think it should happen here. Let's do it here. Okay. Let's write the change and make this work. Browser base content browser.js. That was in delayed startup. And it's down here when it's a Zool element. URI to load is an instance of a Zool element. It's a tab. Make sure it has a doc shell. Stop the above. Make sure it has a doc shell. If the browser that we're swapping in was remote, then we'd better be able to support remote browsers and then make our selected tab remote. So if URI to load is a tab, so I'm going to say let tab tab to swap with equals URI to load. That's somewhat better name. Tab tab to open equals URI to load. If tab to open dot linked browser, and it better have a linked browser, dot is remote browser. If not G multi-process browser, we are in trouble. We should probably report an error in that case. Now there are a couple different ways we can report errors. We can throw and have that bubble up, or we can actually log to the error console. I'm going to opt to log to the error console for now. I think we've seen that being done in this file. In a couple places, yes, cu.report error. So where was I? Where am I going? Where am I going? I was in delayed startup. One of the annoying things is that sometimes it's hard to remember where you were. Here we go. G multi-process browser. cu.report error. Cannot drag a remote browser into a window without the remote tab's load context. That's a long string. I'm going to break that up. And then I'm just going to I do? I don't necessarily want to exit early. There's a whole bunch of like startup stuff to finish off here. So we kind of want to like complete this no matter what. So maybe what I should do then is wrap this in a try catch. Yeah. And then we should report the exception, and then we should throw this. Throw. And then we should force the initial browser to be remote, and then I think we're done. So gbrowser to update browser remoteness. Gbrowser dot selected browser. True. And we do that. I think that'll do the job. It's not very beautiful, but as a proof of concept, this will work. There might be a more graceful way of actually accomplishing what I'm doing here, but as a proof of concept, I think this is fine. Let's see if this actually causes the test to pass. Actually, I think I need to build. Because I did a debug build before, but not, and I didn't have a fresh build for OS X. This might take a couple minutes. While we're waiting for this, the suspense is probably killing you. I'm just going to ask you to hold on, watch that dial. Don't touch that dial. We'll know soon enough whether or not that's going to work out. In the meantime, we can look at this other test failure and see if maybe this is going to be solved by the fix I just did as well, if these two are related. So let's take a look at this one. Browser bug 609-700. What does this do? What we do is we wait. So this just means that this test is not going to finish whenever this function exits, but whenever we call a finish function. So, okay, we register a notification for the DOM window opened topic. When we see it, we unregister the notification, duplicate tab in. I have a feeling this is also going to get fixed by what I just wrote. So let's see what this is. Duplicate tab in. Window. Replace tab with window. I think this is going to fix this one as well. So that's good. Hey, we're almost done our build. Things are coming up. Be Winton. That's just a little inside joke. All right. Build's done. I'm going to take a swig of Coke Zero, and then let's see if our test is passing. All right. Test. Come on, I had it in here, right? No? All right. Fine. Mock, Moki test, browser, then what was it? This one. We're going to pass the e10s argument so that it runs with e10s, and fingers crossed, this will do the job. Do it. Come on. Go, go, go. I feel like I don't know how many people are watching the stream, but I hope you're all with me on this. You're all cheering along. I don't want to get your hopes up. Sometimes tests don't pass right away. Let's see what goes on. It worked. We did it, people. Test passing. All right, now let's make sure it passes with e10s not passed in. Booyah Totally. Hey, that's awesome. Now let's see what happens if we run this other test. Let's see if this one is also fixed. Was it browser bug, content, test, general? It's in the same spot, 609,700. So this is without the e10s flag. Test passed, so that was expected, but now let's pass the e10s flag in. If this passes, we're in good shape. Fingers crossed. I hate that spinner so much. Hey, it passed. So we did find the root cause. We found the root cause of these failures. And that's great. Now let's do a manual test as well. Let's actually just try tearing out a tab and make sure it works. So again, tab tearing not working perfectly just yet. Like the title doesn't work. But yeah, that tear out totally worked just now. And that's exactly what we wanted. We did it, people. Thumbs up. Okay, so let's take a look at this patch. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. It's embedded in code that is similarly not very pretty. Let's see here. But we'll see what my reviewer thinks of it anyways. That's what I wrote. So, actually I'm going to, because I tabbed to open, I'm going to change that here as well. Anything else I wanted to change? Maybe get rid of that. One of these days I'm going to purchase Sublime Text. I swear. I will. Alright. So I'm pretty happy with that. I had another patch in here to in my VM to disable that first. Remember I was telling you about the alert, that stupid alert that comes up that blocks the test I added, the regression test I added for the root bug that I've been working on. It prevents it from passing on Linux. I had written a patch to disable that test. That patch is currently on my Linux box. It actually is kind of a pain in the butt to transfer patches between my VM and actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, what I can use is, so we have this new thing, Moz Review, that we've been fiddling with, which is like a patch-based workflow for code review. And basically you push to a reviews repository and it does the job of creating you a whole bunch of review requests in a special instance of review board that we set up at Mozilla. And it kind of like links up those review requests where you have one review request per commit in the push that you made. The advantage of that is that now we have kind of like we have this repository where you can just shove a whole bunch of patches into, and then you can pull them down between different machines. So my Linux box here, I could push what I've currently got up to the review request I'd already kind of opened. This is I'd opened this is actually going to be a pretty neat test. I might break Moz review now that I think about it, because these I've already done a push to Moz review, but I did it from my host machine, from my OS X machine, and I'm about to push from my Linux VM. So let's see what happens when I do that. Am I even configured? You know, I'm actually going to pull this off screen. There might be some sensitive stuff in my HDRC, so hold on a sec. I think I can do this. I just have to change one or two things. Bear with me just a second. I'm going to have to configure a thing, and it involves me opening up some sensitive files. 1 second. Okay. That is there. That is here. Don't need that one anymore. And Bob's your uncle. Bob's your uncle? Okay. Okay, I can drag this back now. I can drag this back now. And I think I'm going to be able to push to the review repo. Let's see what happens. I've never pushed this repo from this VM before. It doesn't like it because it's... Have I not added this identity? Whoop. Come on. It's Thunderbird because I used to work on Thunderbird. Huh. Wonder what that's all about. I had this problem before. You know what? I've just not... This is a pain in the butt. I don't think it's worth it. I having not configured this my current instance here to push to this review repository. I don't want to debug it. The patch that I'm trying to save time with is a one-liner, so I'm just going to copy and paste it to my host machine. Sorry, world. This is under browser-based content test general, but this is how you get stuff done. You find the shortest path of least resistance. So test general, and then browser any, and then non-remote. This is it. Booyashaka. So now I've got okay, so it piped it through less. That's fine. So disable regression test on Linux. That's a regression test for bug, just so I have my own housekeeping. 1047603. 47603 on Linux. Okay. So, stack of patches. Ooh. Hold up. Did that pack in the work I just did to... Yeah. Oh boy. So that also included the fix I just made to swapping browsers. That is not what I wanted to do. Here's an interesting exercise. How do you split apart this this commit? Because I want it in two separate parts. Actually, I want to take this second part. You can't see me pointing. I keep pointing. I want to split this and put this into the patch that actually adds the test, so that when the test gets added, we also disable it for Linux. And I want this up here to be its own commit. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to diff r. This is definitely not the most efficient way of doing it, but it's the way that I'm going to do it right now. Like Greg Zork, if he ever watches this, he's probably going to just like lose his mind. He's going to be like, oh, there's a billion ways you could do this easier, but I'm not a mercurial amazing guy like he is. I just do stuff with patches sometimes. So here's the difference. Here's the change. What browser.ini. Here's the change I just introduced. I'm just gonna splat that out to a diff. I'm gonna call it change.diff. I can already hear Greg screaming. And then I'm going to patch a reverse patch to undo that change. Then I'm going to commit amend. So that means that my last commit no longer has this change. I've reversed it, and I'm amending my commit. Actually, I'm going to amend again because this commit message is totally wrong now. Fix tab. So this message is wrong. Fix, what was it? Passing Zool tab to a new as in the initialization of a new eTNS window. That's kind of like, that's basically what I fixed. I'll make that commit message better later, but for now I think that's fine. And then I'm going to create a new commit. I'm going to apply the patch correctly, not a reverse this time. And then I'm going to create a new commit. That's just disable regression test. And then I'm going to fold that into the patch that actually introduced the test. So I have this stack of patches. I do a hist edit of the whole stack, even though I only need to change a small subset. I'm going to fold that in here. Fold. And then, yeah, I am actually going to take this opportunity to change the commit message here. Right. Disabled on Linux because of OMTC not being OMTC alert dialog, which blocks the test. Excuse me. Is anyone chatting? Chris Conley says open bracket. Mike Conley says close bracket. Okay. That's my cousin. Hello, Chris. Good to see you. And then, yeah, fix passing Zool tab in the initialization. I guess, what is it? I didn't see before. I think it was like part 6. Is it, where's my... Part 6. I should just copy that. Part 6. And so something more descriptive in here. We need to force the initial browser window to be remote if we're swapping dock shells into a newly created browser window. Oh, I could probably say this simpler. We need to force the initial browser window to be remote if the browser being torn into a new window is remote. I'm going to say remote right away. Because Mossop wrote a patch that does the job of determining whenever we load a document whether or not we should load the browser remotely or not. And that way, whenever you go to, like, there are some pages that are whitelisted and some pages that are blacklisted for running in the remote process. So, for example, the new tab page does not have an underline. This is not running in the remote process. This is running in the parent process. If I go to cbc.ca, it gets the underline. We're running this in a remote process. If I go to about crashes, that's no longer running in the remote process. This is running in the parent process. So there are just a couple of instances where we've got pages that just cannot be opened in a content process. We just don't want to open it. We haven't modified the page to open it in the content process yet, or like it might be broken, or we never want to open it in the content process. There are not too many cases of those pages that we never want to open in the content process, but they're there. For example, Zool documents that an add-on has provided. Zool is not a thing that I think we really want to support rendering and showing up in the content process. So that's an example. Anyway, what was I even talking about? I've got my patch stack. This is great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A great series of patches. Now that I think I've fixed this, I'm going to push all of this to try, and then I'm going to call it a day with this bug and move on to something else. I think I'm also going to call it a day with this stream. I've been streaming for about an hour and a half, and I'm probably going to call it as soon as I push this to try. And yeah, that's my plan. So let's push this to try. So I'm kind of this is another thing that's going to piss Greg Zork off a bit. I still use MQ periodically. One thing I use MQ for is to do try pushes, because MQ allows me to have this like stack of patches, and even though this patch that I just applied is not actually, it's empty, but it allows me to like create a commit with a commit message that's just empty and then pop it off very easily. And that's important because this commit message is in the try syntax. It's this stuff up here that I'm going to pass to the try server to run all the Moki tests on these 4 platforms: Linux, Linux 64, Mac OS X 64, and Win32. And I'm going to do debug and auth builds and run all Moki tests and no tells. So that's what I'm going to push now. I'm going to say push to try. Oh, what am I writing? I've got stage fright. All right, here we go. Pushing to try, pushing to try, bump, 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 pushing to try. Once this comes back green, fingers crossed, I hope it comes back all green, I will request review. I've already got review from Smog on part of the patch that modifies some parts of tab parent and the opening the new window stuff. The rest of it I'll probably have Mossip look at, because he knows this stuff pretty well. So here we go. That's my try push. Let's take a look. Let's check it out. It's still waiting to show up, but this is the one. So I'm going to put a link to it. So let me just update my Etherpad here. I found the solution. I shouldn't say the solution. I found a solution by putting a check for a remote browser in the Zool element handler for arguments in delayed startup. That forces the initial browser to be remote if we're dragging to a new window, or dragging a remote to this new window. I shouldn't say dragging, it's tearing out. There we go. Test pass. It was victory. So there's my try push. Try push. Put a link that I can click. It's nice and handy. I still have this to do. I'll do that not right now. I'm going to work on more interesting bugs now. But to do, I'm going to have to file a bug to get rid of that alert dialog, or modify that alert dialog so I don't forget. But hey, we made good progress today. Great job, everybody. I think I'm going to sign off right here, right now. I hope this was educational-taining. I can't speakology today. Um, and or somewhat. I hope this was a satisfying stream. Is all I'm saying. And thanks for watching. And I'll I really appreciate feedback on this stuff. So if there's something I could do better, maybe comment in the video, or you can send me mail. You can tweet at me. I'm Mike underscore Conley, I think. Is that my Twitter handle? What is it? Oh boy. Come on, what's my Twitter handle? It is Mike underscore Conley, yes. I'll put links to that in the description of this video. You can contact me, let me know what I'm doing wrong, or if I can make this more interesting. If there are things that you want to see more of, maybe I might try, like, because I'm still piloting this. I'm hoping to make this a regular thing, and there are probably some things I can try to make this better. I might do one where I don't talk as much. Like, I know some people say that, Doug was saying in the chat that my voice is soothing, and well, I appreciate that. I don't normally talk out loud while I work. So you're not actually getting a real representation of what it is that I do every day. I'm not actually, like, I'm talking out loud a lot, which is fine, and it's probably better for your understanding. But it's not a really good illustration of what it is that I do every day. And I think so. I might do one where I just turn the screen recorder on, and you can watch me as I work as I normally work. It might actually be a little bit faster because it takes time for me to explain certain things. But it's also true that you might not necessarily understand what it is I'm doing because I'm not explaining it as I go. We'll try that. I might also try one where I work on a smaller bug. A lot of the bugs I've been working on haven't really been touching the front end much. They've mostly been back-endy things these last two times. So maybe we'll try some more front-endy things with pixels and trying to shove some stuff around with CSS. So we could do that. I've got lots of ideas, but let me know, again, if there's anything I can do to make this stuff better. I really want this to be interesting. Maybe some more developers will come on board and start doing this. I think it's a nice way to be open about what we do here at Mozilla.